During the first year, we absolutely had no idea what we were doing. We did not have any product market fit. And in fact, we did spend 70% of our time just.
All right, we're live. Thank you, Vivek, for joining. And thank you for all the listeners who are tuned in on another episode of Life Sciences 360. Our guest today is Vivek Gera, co-founder and CEO of Leucine. Thank you for joining us, Vivek.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, Harsh. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So I want to start off with something that I found when I was researching your profile. You've lived in some really cool places all across the world. I saw Norway, I saw US, Australia. Was this all planned or did you just happen to work and live in all these places?
It was all planned, Harsh. I was actually quite lucky to be, around some really high quality people during my undergraduate days, and my immediate seniors, people who I knew well, they were all doing internships pretty much all over the world, and I always found that people who had come back, they always brought back some really exciting learnings, not only about science and technology, but the way to solve problems, the way you approach different situations. And it kind of inspired me as well to explore and go out of my comfort zone, which is why I tried working towards some of these opportunities, and I was lucky enough to get a chance. Yeah.
Great. And I also saw that you went to, was it undergrad? You went to IIT, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So I'm from India as well. So I know IIT is not an easy school to get into. So how has your time in IIT and all other places or all other education that you got or internships that you got, how has that helped you in, running a software company like Leucine, which we'll dive more about what you're doing there?
Yeah. So, Harsh, you always have lots of talented people around you when you are in a place like IIT, or there are several other, really great universities in India as well. So, however, what I found is that people who were doing really well, in addition to the talent that they had, they were doing a lot of hard work. They had discipline, and people who combined their talent with some of these things were showing a predictable, consistent, repeatable, successful outcomes, and which is exactly what you want in a tech company. You want to grow fast, but month after month, quarter after quarter, you want that consistent, repeatable, predictable journey for the company. So I would say that the ideas about just having enough talent on the team, coming up with good ideas, but then combining that with hard work, discipline, would pretty much lead to predictable and repeatable outcomes for the company. So in a way, yes, it did help in some way, but I would just add that there is no real way to learn how to run a tech company other than to run a tech company. So pretty much learning on the job as well.
Yeah, it's I can relate the importance of a community, whether you go to a Ivy League or like a top school or whatever school you go to, you can always learn
Yeah.
from people around you. And you mentioned, having ideas or bouncing off ideas. So the next question I have for you when you were speaking that is, how did you get the idea for Leucine? Do you remember the day or the moment when you first were like, I want to build this company and this is what it's going to do?
It all happened quite naturally, but gradually, Harsh. So I started my career at a company called Rio Tinto. Rio Tinto is a large mining operations company in Western Australia. They have mines and offices around the world, even though. So what I was able to observe while working at Rio Tinto is that how critical compliance can be as a function for the growth of the enterprise, for the sustainability of the enterprise. And I was doing a majority of my work in building compliance systems while I was there. So, and then coming from a chemical engineering background, I always had a good amount of network, lots of friends in the industry, and the pharma industry was trying to solve challenges which were quite similar to what I was working on, and it kind of gradually, slowly got me into just understanding about the industry a little bit more. Started doing some consulting to begin with, even before starting Leucine. And while I was spending more and more time, it became clear to me that using software and technology has to be the way to solve the compliance challenges that the pharma is facing today.
Okay. And I know just from, talking to other people like you who've started companies in the last 5 or 10 years, the first year is so important, for not only just defining what the company is, but also kind of, some people call it product market fit. I'm not a tech entrepreneur, so I'm not using the right terms maybe, but how did you have that fit with the clients right from day one, or how was the first year like, and what can you share, any challenges that you had as you were trying to fit your product to the industry?
Yeah, so during the first year, we absolutely had no idea what we were doing. We did not have any product market fit. And in fact, we did spend 70% of our time just learning about 21 CFR Part 11, how to incorporate that into the software development, what are the expectations of the FDA when it comes to auditing software solutions at the pharma companies. So, yeah, it was, I wouldn't say a tough year, but we were just learning a lot about what does it mean to even use a software in the production environment within a pharma company, if that makes any sense.
Yep, it does. And when you were saying that, learning about the regulations and trying to figure out, do you have any stories or examples of how, let's say, you were maybe talking to a customer or a client and found out that there was a regulatory requirement, or you just found out from your own research and then you came back to your tech team and said, hey, we need to build this feature because this is a requirement? Do you have any examples that you can share?
Yeah, it happens all the time. However, the approach that we took, we were able to partner with a couple of high quality pharma companies to begin with. So we didn't really have to figure out all the regulatory requirements for ourselves. We were lucky enough to have great partners who were facing critical compliance challenges at the time. And which just made it a lot easier for them to start investing not only in technology but as well as building the relationship with an early technology company like Leucine. So we were pretty much able to work with high quality pharma companies and figure out the how to bake the regulatory aspects within the product along with the users, rather than doing a lot of independent research.
I know a little bit about Lucene because we've had chance to connect before this show, and you've also shown me some of the capabilities of the platform. And I know that, in one line, I know that it's a no-code platform that helps pharmaceutical manufacturers maintain compliance, stay audit ready. What I want to ask you is, from your perspective, what is the one or two things that separate Lucene from all other platforms or tech products in the market serving the life sciences?
So first of all, uh, I deeply respect all the other players who have been in the pharmaceutical software industry, and specifically companies that are 15 years old, 20 years old, who have been building software for pharma for quite a bit. I know from my own experience how challenging it can be to create that adoption for software within pharma. And now imagine doing that 15 years ago when there was no precedence, there was no urgency. So today, I think the environment has become a lot more easier. People are comfortable with technology. There are compliance drivers driving the behavior to adopt the software more and more. Um, so I'm first of all deeply thankful and respectful of all the companies that are in the pharma industry. Now, what we are trying to do at Lucene is that uh, and I would say similar to quite a few other companies as well, that we are deeply almost obsessed with solving problems using the product driven approach. So trying to stay away from services as much as we can, trying to break down the problems into logical pieces, and applying that product first thinking is something that at Leucine we are deeply obsessed about. I'll give you an example here, Harsh, what I mean. So today, an end user can create a new process on the Leucine no code platform uh, within 75 minutes or so. So create one process within, on an average, 75 minutes. Whereas the traditional technologies, you have to pretty much build out the recipe. Being in pharma, you know that it has to go through that review approval life cycle, and it can take days, if not weeks. And something that has dramatically slowed down the innovation or digitalization when it comes to pharma. So uh, however, by applying no code methodologies, by baking in some of the software validation concepts in the way you design the no code components, it creates that ease and simplicity around building new processes on the Lucene no code platform. And hence, we are able to realize much better results than we would have seen, let's say, 5 years ago, when the no code revolution was probably not as much as it is today.
Yeah, and I have done some research on no code as well, because even at Cultivate we are mostly into, regulatory and compliance services, but we help clients with simple automations using off the shelf no code tools. So I've been reading a lot about no code, but you're right. I If you had asked me in 2020 what's no code, I would have said I don't know. So I only started reading about it in 2020, and slowly started looking up tools like Airtable, Zapier, Make, and others that are now so popular in the no code space. So one thing that I want to ask you, and this is what I've observed as well, why do you think life sciences or regulated industries are a little bit playing catch up to technologies like no code and low code? Because I've seen other industries adopt them and implement them much faster with the right use cases, but I've tend to see that pharma is still sort of playing catch up.
Yeah, so I would actually segment the pharma industry in two components here, Harsh. So there are a good amount of companies today who I would say are early adopters of no code, who have been using no code at scale uh, throughout their operations, such as QA, QC, manufacturing, engineering, warehouse. So, for a very specific segment of the industry who are early adopters to no code, I wouldn't say that they are playing catch up. In fact, they are leveraging it as much as any other industry, really. However, then there is a second segment which uh, is catching up on the digitalization in the first place. And it's not specifically about no code or low code, but they are just gearing up for becoming more digital over the next couple of years. And the way they would catch up, in my opinion, would be via no code. So we would probably see a rapid wave of no code adoption coming up soon in the second segment as well, uh, which are not so early adopters at the same level as the early adopters, I think.
Yeah, I can definitely understand how you broke those two down. And what I want to ask you is, when did you first become aware of no code and sort of connect that dots between no code, uh, Leucine, what you were building there, and the problems with the pharmaceutical manufacturers? How did you connect those three dots? Like when was the time?
So in today's consumer technology driven world, we are all using no code technologies in our day to day life. Like you said, you are using things like Zapier and Notion and Airtable. So we had pretty much been using all of these tools in running our business operations. And hence, everybody on the team has been super familiar with the power of automation that it can bring. Now, we started applying some of these concepts when we started scaling up a little bit. So, from our customers' standpoint, they were using the Leucine platform in its early days for maybe one or two processes, but we were getting massive amount of interest and request for extending it to the other areas, and it just became a natural solution for us to look at incorporating no code components in our platform so that we can scale the platform faster across different process types within different functions of a pharma company. So if you look at the journey of manufacturing uh, one batch of drugs, you have engagement from multiple teams. You have to have manufacturing teams performing hundreds of operations, QA, QC, engineering, maintenance. Everybody has to come together to bring that successful batch out. And there are probably hundreds of procedures which successfully have to be carried out while keeping all the compliance and quality checks in place. Now, to achieve that successful outcome, you want to be able to have a solution which doesn't take care of just one area, but it looks at the journey of a manufacturing batch as a whole and delivers compliance and speed across the entire journey. And no code just makes a lot of sense in capturing some of those processes in a platform approach rather than an application approach. So it was pretty natural for us to start looking in this direction while working with some of our early users.
Yeah, and you, the way you broke it down, you have the, like you said, the early users or the early adopters, and then the others that are still embarking on their digitalization journey. What advice do you have for life science companies who are just still learning about no code, or maybe have plans of implementing some use cases? So, obviously the starting point has to be something simple that they can get their feet wet and understand how it works. So do you have any use cases that companies can start adopting who are new to this no code space?
Yeah, absolutely. And Harsh, if you look at the life sciences technology stack, some of the mature companies are using as much as 80 applications across their enterprise, across teams like quality and manufacturing and warehouse and engineering. So for companies who are just approaching the digital journey, it can be a massive uphill task to even start thinking about investing in, let's say, 80 applications, something that the large major pharmaceutical companies have done over the last 5 years. Now, uh, what I have experienced in the last couple of years or so is that by um, analyzing your operations, your critical operations from two point of views. So one from the compliance point of view and second from the productivity point of view. So if you break down all of your operations in these two dimensions, you pretty much get four segments of operations. And the first one that we like to start with in any pharma enterprise is the kind of jobs which happen on a daily basis. So things like logging equipment usage data, things like batch release, things like quality control, orchestration, uh, things which happen on a daily basis but not necessarily have the highest risk of compliance. So you start there so that you pretty much start capturing a high ROI from day one because you are executing high frequency jobs, but at the same time, they are less risky. So your operators, your teams have that opportunity to start the adoption into the world of technology. So you do that for a month, couple of months, and then move on to the high frequency jobs. But this time we would pick up jobs which are more compliance critical, things like batch or execution of sample STPs. So those are some of the things which we generally pick up in the second stage. And once you do these two, in the third stage, you want to just attack all the compliance critical gaps. And finally, in the fourth stage, you would like to digitalize the long tail of procedures, the hundreds of procedures which are left, just to make everything completely paperless. So we do approach uh, this problem in a pretty scientific manner. And by attacking high frequency but simple jobs, creates that foundation for success for any pharmaceutical digitalization effort.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I have to ask you this. What's your take? I don't know if you've thought about this, but do you think no code tools and automation or these sort of drag and drop interface tools will eventually replace traditional software development? What's your take on that?
I was actually talking to one of my friends recently who works at a large tech company. And if you believe him, it has already happened. The no code has already taken over the traditional software development methodologies. So today, specifically for industrial sort of use cases, you don't have people writing software. You have software writing software. So if you believe what you see around you, the no code has probably already taken over the conventional software development landscape.
Yeah, I can personally tell you this from my experience that when I first heard about no code, I used tools like Notion for managing my notes. And then slowly I started following people in this space. And I just saw, I don't have a tech background, I haven't built a product, but I just started seeing the possibilities, right? Not that I'm going to go and build something, but there are tools where you could clone something like Airbnb using no code, right? So that wasn't possible 5, 6 years ago. But now there are literally blogs and YouTube videos that tell you how to do it and which tools to use. So when I start seeing those use cases and comparing the numbers with what, Airbnb or other companies are pulling in, I'm like, wow, is this really that easy? To do this with these when you know the right tools and how to connect them. So I really had that realization when I saw that. And the first question was like, how fast can this take out software development? And now people are talking about things like AI and chat GPT and how fast can it replace Google search. I don't know, but it looks, things like that look pretty scary when you first see them, and then you just learn and see how people be creative and use them for solving problems.
Yeah, no, I think that's great insights. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to ask you something about entrepreneurship. You've been running Leucine for over 4 years, and you have a lot of, as you mentioned, you have a lot of friends who are in running tech companies or running other companies. What advice do you have for any entrepreneurs who are listening to this show?
So at Leucine, some of the best performing people, Harsh, when they joined us, they had zero experience, and pretty much we have had people learning on the job. We have people who were really experienced as well, coming in from software backgrounds, from product, from design, from pharmaceutical operations. But in my experience, some of the most successful people at Leucine we have, one thing they all have in common is the sense of curiosity. So, which is something I would definitely like to share with everybody, that when you start building out your team, definitely look at adding people to the team who are inherently curious, even if they don't have a lot of the other, you know, traits like coming in from great universities with lots of good grades. But if you have people who are inherently curious, plus hard work, like I have said a couple of times during our chat today, you have a recipe of successful team members who will do wonders. So that would be my one piece of advice for everybody.
Yeah, and it's not easy for everyone to accept that, especially if, the mindset is that you can only hire somebody that has tremendous experience in the past or has done things. But I agree with your side of thinking, and I feel like I've discussed this with other people and people that I've hired on my team who've said, "Hey, I don't have experience. I don't think I can help you." And I'm like, "No, it's fine. I can tell you like how to do it. I don't know it either. Like we'll learn together and figure it out." So I feel at some point, especially with the amount of information that's available to us, necessarily disregarding somebody just because they don't have the right experience is to me a missed opportunity, because just because the amount of information we have, it's easy to learn and implement. And then obviously if you take a risk or a bet on somebody that figures it out, you reap the rewards for having them on your team as well. Yeah, so I want to ask you. I like reading books, and I always talk when I talk to people like you. I want to understand books help us shape our thinking and sort of the way we do things in our life, whether it's habits or business success. So I want to ask you, as a entrepreneur, are there any books that you've read recently, and what was like a key takeaway that stuck with you when you read those books?
Yeah, so one specific book that comes to my mind, Harsh, that has truly changed the way I have been thinking about solving problems is has to be classic favorite, like Thinking Fast and Slow. Now, when you start
Mhm.
consciously thinking about the way you think is where the magic can happen. Now, after reading through Thinking Fast and Slow, I have read similar books like Predictably Irrational and maybe 5 to 10 books on the same theme. So, something that has helped me being conscious about the way you think about solving problems. So, um, I probably have read hundreds of books over the last 3 years, 4 years. I probably read one book every week or couple of weeks or so. But they're all always from different uh, functions, different kind of jobs. So I try not to stay focused on only one theme. Just try to read whatever uh, people around me are reading. But I truly have to appreciate some of the books like Thinking Fast and Slow, which truly inspire you to think in a different and critical manner.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. So what is your preferred format for reading, right? Because now we live in an age where we have, ebooks, we have Kindles and audiobooks, and still the hard copy and the paper books. So what is your preferred format for reading books?
So I would say I'm a bit old fashioned. I would use Audible to listen to my books. I don't think anybody is reading books anymore. So everybody is using some kind of technology. But I haven't graduated to things like Blinks, and there are other things which I have been recommended by my friends and family. But I'm a bit old fashioned still, and I would just listen to the entire book.
Isn't Blink the one that gives you like a summary of a book, like it summarizes a book? I don't know, maybe I've heard of it too.
Yeah, no, I think you are a bit like me as well. So perhaps you are reading the entire books as well. And yeah, Blinks is like a 15-20 minute summary of, yeah.
Yeah, I used to try and read an entire book, and then I stopped doing it because it was just too much pressure, right? Like if I picked up a book, and the pressure was because I was buying books, so I was like, oh man, I spent $20 buying this book. Now if I don't finish it, I feel bad. So then I started, I got a library card every place I lived, in San Francisco, now in North Carolina. So now I don't have that pressure. I just go and buy like 10 books and I just skim through. And if I, after like a day or two, if I don't like it, I just forget about it because there's no pressure. I didn't invest in that book. But if I like it, then I'll finish it. So I, I no longer try to read books just for finishing them because it was almost felt like homework. Like I had to do that just so I could feel that I read the book. Otherwise, it would just be sitting on my bookshelf. So
And it'll haunt you in your dreams.
yeah. So any big goals for 2023 for you or for Leucine that you can share with us?
Yeah, so for 2023, we are really excited and looking forward to bringing in more data driven capabilities into the platform. We have uh, had some partnerships within the life sciences industry to just run some pilots using early AI technologies. And we are seeing great results based on some of the pilots that we have conducted. Now, over the next quarter or so, the goal would be to productionize and make it available to the wider audience within our user base, and see what kind of results we can achieve for everybody. So really looking forward to and excited about how we can use data more and more this year.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. So I wish you all the best for all the goals that you have. Uh, where can listeners find you if they want to connect with you or talk about anything that you shared with us today?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me by just visiting leucine.io, leucine.io, and my email ID is vivek.gera@leucine.io.
Great. Any final thoughts you want to add, or do you think of any questions that you thought I would ask you but I didn't?
Yeah, I felt you would probably ask me about the interaction that we have had to begin with. How did we come to know about each other? So I think I would really like to thank you as well, Harsh. You were probably one of the first few people who I had interacted with after moving to US, and all the great advice that I have received from you in the beginning has been still it helps quite a bit. So I would pretty much like to thank you for just being a supporter from early days, being a mentor, and being a good friend.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. This is what this show is all about. We want to get people like you who are doing stuff in life sciences space that are not getting the attention, or many people don't know about companies like yours. I didn't know about it. We just connected on LinkedIn, and I'm glad that now I know about you and the company and what your plans are. So yeah, I'm always looking to network people. It's just amazing to have platforms like LinkedIn that help us do that. We're no longer trying to fly somewhere and meet somebody in a shop, coffee shop, or a restaurant. It's all, just sending direct messages and getting on a call or a show like this. So I thank you so much for your time. I really loved this conversation just because I'm biased to no code and learning all this stuff. So I loved this, listening to this and listening to you talk about everything you're doing. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Harsh. It was a true pleasure having this chat.
Yep. Wish you all the best for 2023 and beyond. I'll talk to you on LinkedIn or some other way.
Yeah, same to you, and thank you so much.